Now, the BRICS joint statement, interestingly, has called for UNSC reforms. Now, the five-nation bloc has given a call to support the legitimate aspirations of nations such as Brazil, India and South Africa, in particular in the United Nations, including in its Security Council. Now, the joint statement has expressed support for India's G20 presidency, and this is what is very interesting. Earlier in the day, the BRICS grouping agreed upon this expansion where 6 new nations have now been invited to be a part of the BRICS group. These include the likes of Saudi Arabia and Iran, amongst other nations such as Argentina, Ethiopia, etc., who will now, if everything goes smoothly, will be a part of the BRICS grouping. Now, the other nations include Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, the United Arab Emirates, etc., and the expansion was pushed heavily by Russia and China, who are facing Western sanctions and are looking for a new world alignment in the wake of the Ukraine war. Now, remember, 40 nations have shown interest in joining the group, with 22 of them making an official request to be a part of the BRICS grouping.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
The new candidates will be formally admitted as members on the 1st of January 2024. The leaders have decided to leave open the possibility of adding more members in the future. The Brazilian President Lula da Silva has said that he wants to see the African Union eventually join the bloc. Now, the Indian Prime Minister said that the bloc's expansion should be an example for other global institutions as well. Now, the West has been keeping a very close eye on the developments in Johannesburg. Many analysts, in fact, believe that the expansion of BRICS could pose a challenge to the economic hegemony of the G7 nations, as some of the world's fastest emerging economies continue to assert themselves. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what this expansion of the BRICS grouping, of course, means, we're being joined by Mr. Gustavo de Carvalho, who is a senior researcher on African governance and diplomacy program. Is joining us live from Johannesburg at this moment. Now, Mr. Carvalho, this is an important moment for the BRICS grouping as such. 6 new nations have been invited to be a part of the BRICS grouping. What do you make of this expansion?
Indeed, it's a very symbolic and historical moment for the group. When we look into a group that is still very informal in nature, and the decision of bringing countries from various different parts of the world, there is a lot of potential that for BRICS in terms of their ongoing discussions. I think there's particularly when it comes to engagements related to potentially trading with local currencies. India is a country that is already doing that. We've seen recent agreements between India and the UAE. And the idea at the moment is for ministers of finance and governors of central banks to engage in a discussion for the next year until the next summit in Russia in 2024, so to identify what will be some of the mechanisms. And particularly when we look into countries at the Gulf like Iran, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, they bring a lot of liquidity to the group. They bring an opportunity in terms of ensuring that trading with local currencies can create a much wider web in terms of how the different BRICS members come together. But it's also quite important to see countries like Argentina, very close ally to Brazil, and 2 African countries responding to many of the demands of South Africa that was expecting to see a much larger representation of African countries within the BRICS, which South Africa sees as particularly important when it aligned with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and particularly with the expectations of the AU joining the G20 in the summit in India this year.
Absolutely. Now, the BRICS grouping is a group that is said to be the voice of the global South. And many people, in fact, say that BRICS has to a certain extent succeeded in challenging the hegemony of the West, of the G7 nations to be in particular. How far do you think the BRICS has, in fact, been the voice of the global South, and how much of a clout do the BRICS nations have to challenge the clout of the West?
we are seeing an increasing momentum for countries within the global south. And I think to a certain extent, it's important that we continue to seek for autonomy, that we continue to seek for reforms within international financial institutions. I think we still have a long way to go. There is a number of discussions that still need to happen, including in relation to the criteria and what will happen with decision-making within the bloc. As I said, it's a very informal bloc, so the expansion with with new six countries now, it will certainly have an impact. But I think it would what is important for us to reflect as well is that BRICS should not necessarily see as an antagonistic to the West. There is a space for global South countries, and particularly a very important role that many of us have been playing in decision making globally. But it's important to also continue having discussions with Western partners if we want to break the increasing global divide that we see at the moment.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much, indeed, Mr. Cavallo, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.